Welcome to our meeting. We are going to start in a moment. I would like to welcome all district staff that's here. Dr. Heenan, Dr. Simon, welcome. So it's time to go ahead and do the instructions for interpreting. So we want to give the time to the interpreters to give those instructions. Si están todavía en el canal de inglés, si me pueden mirar a la pantalla, escojan el globo, oprima el globo, escoge su idioma y también mute original audio. Gracias.
Okay, Lilia, let's start.
Muy bien. Vamos a tener a la presentadora de Tiger.
Okay, we're going to have the first presenter from Tiger. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. Marisol, please.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for welcoming me to your group. I will admit I have my little puppy here. She's been very quiet, but I know someone's going to walk through the door, so I apologize if there's any noise. I'll talk over her as much as possible.
I can hear her.
Oh, someone said they can't hear me.
You need to press on the interpretation icon.
Did you guys select your language and mute original audio?
Maybe it's a matter of
Yes, I did. I can't hear her though.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Alexa, stop.
Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would just choose the language and don't do the mute original audio, and I think it works.
Excuse me.
Yes, Alice?
I needed the password. I'm trying to go on Zoom on my daughter's Chromebook, and it asked me for a meeting password.
The meeting doesn't have a password. It may be something related to the Chrome. So we recommend you stay on your phone or some other device because Chrome
I'll stay on my phone.
Thing. Apologies.
Okay. It's okay. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for being here tonight. My name is Marisol. I am an attorney with Learning Rights Law Center. I've recently been assigned to Tiger Director. For those of you who are not familiar, TIGER stands for Teaching Individuals for Grassroots Education Reform. I'll be talking about that a little bit more, but I'm here to, as I understand, give you sort of an introduction, an overview of special education and the IEP process. For some of you, this may be completely new. For some of you, this may be old news. There will be questions, a time for questions at the end. So please keep that in mind. So let me see. This presentation, it's written in English. Don't worry about reading it. It's mostly for me, for my notes. I encourage everybody just to listen. If you have questions afterwards, I will put my email in the chat, and I encourage you, all of us, to reach out. Additionally, I will be telling you a little bit more about the services that we offer. So if you feel like you have questions and you want to be more engaged, just go ahead and reach out. We're here to talk to you. With regard to who we are at Learning Rights Law Center, we are a nonprofit legal services organization. We offer free legal services to low-income families whose children are experiencing some sort of barrier to their education. We have 3 primary programs, one being the TIGER program, which I will talk about in a little bit. Another one being our Education Rights Clinic, where families can come to us when they have a concern regarding their child's education. It's possible that the child has an IEP in place but is not making progress. It's possible that the child needs to be assessed again, or maybe an IEP meeting needs to be held. The families meet with our volunteers and our lawyers to discuss what's going on with the child's education and what next steps can the families take to help their child. And that's really what TIGER and Education Rights Clinic at Learning Rights Law Center are focused on, is giving parents the tools that they need to be able to know their rights, know their children's rights, and to be able to advocate for them with the school districts. So here are some families, some photos of some of our clients, each of them coming from the different programs. I did forget to mention the 3rd program. We have Education Rights Clinic, TIGER, and then we have our litigation and advocacy program. So the first 2 are really focused on empowering you as parents. The 3rd one, the advocacy and litigation, is when our sense is that you probably need an attorney at this point, or an attorney would benefit you. So then we'll keep the case in-house and help you advocate for services with the school district. And all of our services within the 3 programs are free of charge. So that's who we are. With regard to why we exist, why is there an organization that's focused on education advocacy in California? Statistics show that across the state, the majority of students are at risk of failing school, not graduating or not finishing high school. My statistic is a little old, but about 2 years ago, there were approximately 1.5 million students enrolled in Los Angeles County alone. And again, that's just Los Angeles County. If you can imagine all the students across the state, and the majority have some kind of risk factor to not being able to graduate. These are some examples of what some of the risk factors can include. For example, if the family is socioeconomically disadvantaged or low income, that creates barriers to being able to access services that the child might need to make progress. And I should note that all of our families who come to Learning Rights and get our help qualify on this basis, if not others. You can see that another risk factor might be that the family or that the student is not English speaking, which can create barriers. The one that we see most common is the 12% one, the students with disabilities, which can result in barriers to a child being able to make progress if appropriate services are not in place. So 12% of students in California do have a diagnosed disability. So these are just things that might impair a child's ability to make progress in school. And so we want to help fight that and overcome those barriers. And we want to help parents to be able to do that. Regard to that 12%, the number of students in California who have a diagnosed disability, these are what are considered special education eligibility categories in California. So there are 13, and you can see that there's a wide variety of them. Most of our clients do have special education eligibility, but it's not a requirement. As long as there's a barrier to education, such as discrimination, bullying, anything like that, we can be involved, assuming the family's low income. And like I said, a majority of our clients do qualify for special education services. I'm not sure how familiar folks are with these different eligibility categories. I won't get into a lot of them unless I see hands raised. But just so you know, a child can qualify for special education services based on one of these categories or more than one. So it's possible that we'll have a child with specific learning disability, or 38%, and then also a speech and language impairment. So there could be multiple diagnoses that result in the child's eligibility for special education services. So I'll go to the next slide. With respect to special education, the federal law that puts into place the rules regarding special education is the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, or the IDEA. It's a federal law that mandates or requires special education and services to students who are eligible. The IDEA, I will get into it a little bit more in just a few seconds, but it enumerates, or it lays out the rights of three different groups. It lays out the rights of students. What are the students' rights? What are their protections under federal law as a child with a disability? It lays out the parents' rights. What are the parents' rights and protections under federal law as having a child with a disability? And then also it relates to the school district and what protections the school districts have. In order to be eligible for special education services, a child must be under the age of 22. If a child graduates at age 18, they will have already aged out of the system. They will no longer be eligible for special education services if they graduate. But if they're on a certificate of completion track and are still in the public education system, they can receive services up until the age of 22. And in order to qualify, they must have a qualifying disability, which was one of the ones, one of the categories that, or one of the groups that I showed you in a previous slide, one of those qualifying disabilities. And there must be an actual need for special education services. It's possible that a child has a disability that we talked about, but doesn't need the extra help in class, in which case other protections would apply. But for the IDEA, there has to be a need for special education services in order for the child to make progress at school. Okay, so students' rights under the IDEA. I talked about the IDEA protecting students. What are the students' rights under federal and state law? First and foremost, everybody should know free and appropriate public education, or FAPE. FAPE is what the federal government guarantees to children who are in the special education system. Free, appropriate public education. Free meaning that whatever services the child needs in order to make progress in school and become prepared for adulthood, those services are to be provided by the school district, like it says, free of charge. Parents should not have to pay for that. If a child needs speech and language services in order to make progress at school, or counseling services in order to be able to learn in the classroom, those are all services that the school must provide free of charge to the family or to the student. Appropriate means that we'll talk about the IEP in a little bit, but each child is entitled to a plan that is appropriate or uniquely tailored to him or her. So for example, we have some families who have perhaps two children with autism. the same diagnosis, they're on autism spectrum disorder, but their needs can be very different. For example, in one family, I remember the mom telling me one of her children, one of her kids was nonverbal. The other one could talk, but was having issues with academics. So just because two children have the same diagnosis does not mean that their needs are the same. So each plan that the child has to be appropriate for him or her based on their needs. Public, in FAPE, the P is public school. There are certain exceptions, what we call non-public schools and residential placement, but to the extent possible, we want kids to be educated in a public school setting. And the E in FAPE stands for education. So students have rights to FAPE, which includes not just academics. When we talk about special education services, we might be thinking reading, math, writing, but really a FAPE includes anything that the child needs, all the services that the child needs in order to make progress in school. So I talked about that a little bit. Speech and language services, counseling services, perhaps physical therapy services, what have you. But the idea is not just to have the child learn reading, math, and writing, but to prepare that child to perform once they're out of school. In the least restrictive environment, so the child has the right to be educated in what we call the least restrictive environment. And that means it's a little bit complicated, but to the extent possible, schools must ensure that children with disabilities are educated in the same with their peers, or spend as much with their typical peers, that there's as much integration with their typical peers as possible. The way we decide what's a FAPE for a student, what would be the least restrictive environment, is with assessments, which I will talk about. And all of these once we decide what is FAPE, what are the services that the child needs, what placement should they have, it all gets documented in an IEP, which I will talk about. So assessments, I mentioned that in order to figure out what's a FAPE for the child, what kind of services do they require? What can the school do to help them make progress? It all goes back to assessments. Assessments, for example, in psychoeducational or occupational therapy, assistive technology, the student has the right to be assessed in all areas of suspected disability. So if you have a child that you suspect there's a learning disability, that the school is required to assess for learning disability. If in addition to that, you suspect a speech and language impairment or a need for occupational therapy, the assessment must be in all areas of suspected need. The assessment is supposed to be in the child's primary language. One of the things that's become a little bit tricky with Zoom is there is the requirement of a classroom observation. With schools not being in person, that proved to be a little bit difficult with COVID, but there is supposed to be some observation of the child as opposed to just pulling the academic records, looking at report cards, looking at previous reports written by other people. The assessor at this point in time is supposed to actually witness for him or herself how that child is functioning in school. And then there's a reassessment every 3 years. So once if and when a child is found eligible for special education services, that child must be reassessed at minimum every 3 years. And that makes logical sense. A child who's 3 who qualifies for special education services at the age of 6 may possibly even have very different needs. So we need to continue to assess every 3 years at minimum, although schools can assess up to once every year. And I just wanted to throw in a little note about child find, which is important. Child find means that the school has an obligation, the district has an obligation to identify all students within its area, that in its district, that are suspected of having a disability. So this applies to, for example, students who are in private school or students who are being homeschooled, students who are staying at home right now because of COVID. The district does have an opportunity to go out into the community, find these kids with a suspected disability and assess them. Okay. Related services, I talked about that a little bit in terms of FAPE is not just reading, writing, math. It's these additional services that a child may need in order to make progress in school. Counseling, occupational therapy, physical therapy. Some kids need recreational therapy. It depends. And again, it's very individualized, uniquely tailored to that individual child. And all of this, like I said, gets memorialized in an individualized education program or plan, an IEP, an individualized education plan, which gets created at an IEP meeting. IEPs look very different between districts. I've seen IEPs from LA County, from Long Beach, from Riverside, from Compton, from Montebello, from all over. And they all can look very different. And looking at one from one district if I can read one from one district, doesn't necessarily mean that I can read very quickly one from another. They can be very complicated, but they all have to have these essential components. So when you're looking at IEP, you should make sure that there are these certain components that are included. Again, sometimes they're hard to find. They're in different places depending on different districts, but they should all be there. And the first is present levels of performance. So what are your child's strengths? What are their weaknesses? And this is a discussion that is had with the district. A lot of times what I've seen is the IEPs come already sort of drafted with comments from teachers and assessors and other folks. That's fine. But you as parents also have the ability to contribute to what gets mentioned in those present levels of performance. So if you have other ideas as to what the child's strengths are, what their weaknesses are, or what you observe as the parent, that's also important, and you should mention at an IEP meeting. Each IEP will have goals for a student. So once you look at the present levels of performance, you've discussed what are the child's needs academically, socially, emotionally, functionally. What does the child need in order to make progress? And for each need, there must be a goal. So if there's a language deficit that the child has, there must be a language goal. If there's a difficulty with the math the child has, there must be a math goal. Each area of need must have a goal related to it, and services to help make sure that those goals are accomplished. Let's see. I'm going to skip down to participation with non-disabled peers. As I mentioned, there is federal law does require that, to the extent possible, students with special needs be in the presence of and learn next to students who do not have special needs. So it's always going to be documented in the IEP. How much time is a child spending with other students who have disabilities, and how much time are they spending with their typical peers? An important thing to note is that the IEP must indicate the frequency, location, and duration of related services. In other words, you as the parent must be able to understand what is the school actually offering you. If they're saying, you know your child's going to receive speech and language, you should be able to read the IEP and understand how often, where it's going to take place, how many minutes a week, is it going to be in a group setting or in an individual setting? All of this has to be clear. You have to really be able to read the IEP, and it has to be clear that the district must make it clear to you what the services being offered include. Let's see, transition services, Those are for kids who are going to be exiting the special education system, entering adulthood. Assistive technology, I think the next speaker might be touching on that. But the most important thing, again, is the offer of FAPE. Again, this ability for the need for the offer and services to be clear. As an attorney, I often look at an IEP and I don't know exactly what it's saying. There can be notes from different IEP meetings and different services that have been offered throughout the years, and I need to try to figure out at this IEP meeting that last took place, what is it that the school district is offering? What's their offer of FAPE? And it's not always easy to figure out, even for us lawyers. So that's why we're here at Learning Rights, to help you if you need help reading what's in there. But it must be a clear offer of FAPE. It must be understandable to you what's being offered. If not, then we would argue it's not FAPE to begin with. Okay, in terms of assessments, like I mentioned, districts have an obligation to go out into the community and in their schools and find kids who they suspect of having a disability. But you as a parent do not have to wait for that to happen. If you feel that your child is not making progress at school, if you suspect that there's a disability, potentially you have the right to request an assessment. And we always encourage you to put it in writing. At Learning Rights, we have samples that we can give you with instructions on how to fill out a template, so we can help with that, but definitely put your request in writing. Nowadays, it's a little bit easier because we have email and it tracks the date that you sent it, and all that's automatic. Before, if you would have to go take something to the office, you would ask to get it stamped. You want to put it in writing and you want proof of when you did that. And the school, the reason you need to document the date is because the school, once you submit it, has 15 days to give you an assessment plan. So the school will say, okay, yes, we will assess your child in this area, psychoed, social behavioral, speech and language, what have you. And you as a parent really should look at that closely. If you suspect that there's an area of need that they are not going to be looking at, you can add that. You can ask them to add that to the list of assessments. So that's very important to do, to be able to look at that assessment plan and make sure it covers all the areas that you have concerns in. Once that's done, once you've submitted that, the district then has 60 days to complete its evaluations and hold the IEP meeting. There are some limited exceptions, but generally speaking, mark your calendars. Once you've turned in your consent, the school district has 60 days to do all the assessments and hold the IEP meeting. Once the IEP meeting is held, if a child is found eligible for special education services, annual IEP meetings will happen naturally. The school is required to hold an IEP meeting every year. So for example, if your child was tested and became eligible for special education services in September, in September of 2020, that in September of 2021, there's going to be another IEP meeting to talk about the student's progress and how they're doing. But what if your child is assessed in September? You have an IEP meeting, you have services in place, and then come December, January, February, you're noticing, hey, my child's still struggling. Something's not right. These services are not helping. You can at any time request an IEP meeting. You do not have to wait for the 1 year to pass. You do not have to wait for the district to offer it. If you as a parent feel your child is not making progress in school, you can request an IEP meeting at any time. As always, put that in writing, and then the school district will have 30 days to hold the meeting with you. Okay, once signing the IEP can be a little bit tricky. You have some options once you're at the meeting and the district says, here is our offer of FAPE. Please sign, or you can sign now. You have options. You do not have to sign at the meeting itself. You do not have to sign within a certain amount of time. You can take the document with you, review it, and make sure you're comfortable with it. Or if you're not, you can make sure to document what you disagree with. So definitely take whatever time you need. I never counsel a family to sign the IEP at the meeting itself. I would not do that. As the lawyer, I need time to look at it, review it. So parents are encouraged to do that as well. Keeping in mind, if this is the first IEP for your child, let's say your child is 3 years old, has never received special education services, and this is the first IEP he or she will have, the services cannot actually start until you sign the IEP. So yes, take what time you need, but keep in mind services cannot start until you've actually signed and consented. On the other hand, if your child is already receiving services, let's say they're 16 years old, been receiving services since the age of 5, and now the district is offering new services in a new IEP, and you're not sure how you feel about that. Again, take whatever time you need. Try not to take too long, but keep in mind that the services from the last IEP will still be in place, and that's what we call stay put. You can agree to the IEP in whole when you do sign. You can agree to it in part, or you can disagree with it altogether. What I generally recommend, or what one option for a family is, if they think that the services are good, that they're more or less appropriate, go ahead and sign the IEP. And you can always put a note saying, I agree to implement, but this is not FAPE. I disagree, this is FAPE for my child. Additionally, sometimes parents have lots of stuff that they want to say to the district. Maybe the parent has notes that were not included in the IEP. Maybe the parent has noted certain behaviors or weaknesses and strengths that are not noted in the IEP. Parents always have the option to write up separately in a letter what their concerns are, and attach that to the IEP. It's what we call a parent statement. At Learning Rights, we can help you with that. And you can also learn all of that through our Tiger classes. And with regard to parents, let me check time. Okay, with regard to parents, you also have rights under the IDEA. You have a right to participate in the IEP team as an equal team member. I always tell my parents, my clients, you know your child better than anybody. And I've been to IEP meetings, and I know that sometimes it can feel a little bit intimidating. As a parent can walk in, and there's a lot of other people from the district who are there to help your child, but sometimes it's intimidating to speak up. But you as a parent do know your child better than anybody. So you're an equal you're an equal member of the team. You are part of the IEP team. And you have that right under federal law, which goes into the next bullet. You have the right to be heard and have your concerns documented. The meeting must be held at a time and date that's convenient for you. And you are allowed to bring others who know your child and who can give input on his or her abilities. So if there's a counselor or a mentor, or somebody who knows your child very well and can speak to their academic and other needs, they are invited. You can bring an attorney, keeping in mind that if you do bring an attorney, the district will also very likely have an attorney with them as well. So IEPs, the way I see them, they are discussions regarding your child. Everybody is there to try to help the child. So attorneys at our organization don't usually go to IEP meetings because the parents are there and can speak to the needs of their kids. But once in a while, we will go to the meetings. Parents, you have the right to interpretation in your native language and translation of the IEP documents. If you sign an IEP, you're able to, or if you can agree to special education services and you change your mind, that's okay. But that would have to be put in writing. And the last little bullet here is you have the right to review the IEP before you sign it. I talked about that already. I have so many parents that come to me saying, I only have a week to sign this. Can you please help me? I said, yes, I'll help you. But that time, that limitation in terms of time is not accurate. And I talked about that already. Okay, so COVID. Oh, it gets complicated. Everything that I've talked about is still in place. So IDA, still there. FAPE, free and appropriate public education, still there. Assessments still need to be done. IEP meetings still need to be held. The rules have not changed. Practically speaking, is it easy or convenient for all of these rules to be followed? Not necessarily, and we've seen that. I'm sure you've seen that in your child's experience with the school. But keep in mind that the rules are the same; they have not changed. So if you request an IEP meeting and 60 days passes and you were supposed to have them within 30 days, that's a violation of federal law. That rule still applies. So COVID definitely complicates things, but it does not change what the federal law says regarding protections for you and your child. Let's see. I already talked about this. I think I was missing one. One thing that I did want to mention is we are seeing, I haven't seen it personally, but I knew eligibility, one of the eligibility categories for special education is OHI or other health impairment. Usually or oftentimes in that category, I will see kids, for example, with ADHD or significant anxiety or asthma, and it's impairing their progress. Now with COVID, if a child's been diagnosed with COVID, there is what we call long COVID, lingering effects of the virus that can potentially affect a child's respiratory system, attention, or all kinds of things. I have a friend who unfortunately had COVID, and months later, she couldn't walk because she said every time she walked, it felt like she was stepping on needles. So just keep in mind, if your child had COVID and you think that it somehow has affected his or her ability to learn, that might be a reason for the district to go ahead and assess your child. So in terms of the services at Learning Rights, we do have our Tiger classes. Tiger classes are held once a month. We're still accepting applications through December. I have an intern who is going to put in the chat the application instructions if you're interested. If not, you can email me. I'll give you my email at the end. We have a beginner's class for folks who are entirely new to IEPs and special education. We have an advanced class, which will be starting in January, which is more geared towards those who already know the basics but want to learn, how do I write this complicated letter? What is due process? Things like that. And then we also have a class that's taught in conjunction with the with SCDD, Southern California. The name escapes me, I'm sorry, but it's a class related to transition services. So where we're focused on getting kids ready, getting kids to do well and excel in school. What happens after that? What happens when the child is no longer eligible for services? And that class is focused on transition. So they are free of charge to those who qualify. Basically a person who's low income and who has a child in the special education system. They are taught by special education advocates and attorneys. They meet once a month, and at the end of the year, there is a graduation ceremony. So Tiger classes, as a Tiger director, they're near and dear to me. So if you have any questions, I encourage you to reach out or apply. We also have at Learning Rights, the Education Rights Clinic and consultations, which I spoke about at the beginning, meeting with our staff and volunteers to figure out what's going on with your child. How can you help them as mom, as dad, as parent, as guardian, as grandma, as grandpa? What can you do to help your child make progress at school? Help you to understand your rights and how to protect your students' rights. So those are all empowering parents and guardians. And then litigation advocacy is the same. It's empowerment, but it's under the direction of an attorney. So we'll keep the case and open it in-house. And then a little bit more on tiger classes, which I don't need to share. And that's it. Thank you. My email is here, tiger@learningrights.org. That's managed by myself and a tiger coordinator named Kim. It's the two of us right now and some volunteers that make up the tiger team. But we encourage you to reach out with any questions. If you end up needing a consultation, we will refer you to our education rights clinic. If you're interested in classes, we also have workshops and webinars throughout the year where we can talk more about this. We're going to have one that's solely dedicated to how to sign an IEP, how to read and sign an IEP. We are hoping to have a Tiger Town Hall, virtual likely, in the spring. So there's lots of different ways that you can be involved and access our services. That's what I have.
Okay, Marisol, we have one question, but what happens if the school is not following the times, like the 60-day or the 30-day rule? Like, are there any consequences?
Yes. So there is the option of filing a compliance complaint with the California Department of Education. It's a pretty simple form, simple in terms of legal speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Still not that easy. We can help parents with that at the Education Rights Clinic, but it's a complaint against the district alleging that they are not following the law, they are not following the timelines, and then the California Department of Education can investigate that and then create a remedy. For example, either ordering the district to follow the timelines right away, or sometimes they can result in an order of compensatory services. If the district was supposed to be giving an hour of speech and language therapy every month, but hasn't been doing it for 6 months, the district can be ordered to provide those services as compensatory services.
Okay. Second question, does the district or the school is mandated to inform the parent when the services are not being provided? Like, I think we had an example of a one-to-one that wasn't showing up.
I'm not sure about a legal requirement in terms of that. They are required to keep logs.
Mm-hmm.
So if once a service is provided, the district must document that so that there's proof, that evidence that the service was provided. So if your child's telling you my one-on-one's not showing up, or you have suspicion that the child's not showing up, that the one-on-one is not showing up, or any other service that's not being provided, in order to document that, you can request service logs. You can request documentation from the district. If the services happened, you'll see it. If they didn't happen, you'll also be able to see it.
Okay. How about, let me see. Sorry. The parents are allowed to take friends or therapists or their own representative. Like they can come to the meeting with whoever they want, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And who is normally a recommended companion to the IEPs?
I think somebody who knows the child well. If for example, your child is receiving speech and language services through Medi-Cal, and that therapist thinks that the child needs more help from school or more suggestions on how that can be done, or counselors, for example, if a child is not making progress in school because of acting out, behavioral challenges, if you have somebody from outside who can speak to what they see and observe in the child, that can help. A mentor, I think, especially for some of our older kids who are in need of transition services, somebody who knows the child well that might be able to speak on their behalf. And it could be just, to the extent a parent needs their own support, just to get there and to speak up and to say what's on their mind. that's okay too. And like I said before, an attorney can go, the attorney will have to give notice to the district, and then the district will likely also bring their own attorney.
The other question is if is there any age that is recommended that the student itself attend the IEP meetings?
It depends on the district. Under California law, the age is 16, that they are required to be invited to the IEP meeting. Other districts, certain districts may do it differently. I know LAUSD starts inviting students at age 14. I'm not sure what Long Beach does, but certainly at age 16 under California laws, students should be invited to the meeting.
Okay. Somebody's asking if you could explain a little bit more about service log. I have asked about my child's IEP meeting, and her case manager had no clue about a service log.
No clue about service log. At Learning Rights, we do have templates that can help you put that request in writing. I don't know that. I mean, my guess is maybe different districts call it by different stuff, but just like where is it documented, the documentation of the services that you're giving my child? Where is that being put? Where is that being recorded? But they're welcome to also reach out to us for a template.
Okay. Somebody's also asking if you could guide them on how to decide which Tiger class to sign up for.
Sure. Email me. Here, I'll put my email in the chat.
Okay. Then another one, what happens if you sign the IEP but check off that there are parts you do not consent to?
Okay. If you sign the IEP but check out parts that you do not consent to, it depends. And I know that that's the answer that attorneys always give. It depends. Let's say that you have an IEP from last year and you just had an IEP meeting and the district wants to reduce certain services. Last year, your child was offered 1 hour of speech and language, which I always go to a week. And now the district is saying they want to reduce it to 30 minutes a week, but everything else stays the same. You can agree to the IEP in part, disagree with the reduction of services. The school district cannot reduce services without your consent. So the hour a week will still be in place. I don't know if that makes sense. It gets very complicated. It's what we call stay put. So I encourage you, if you have questions about that, to reach out, but just know that if the district cannot remove a services or change services without your consent.
Okay, there's another question. Is it appropriate that the IEP has the exact same goals for 2 years straight?
As an advocate, I would argue no. I would argue that shows lack of progress. And therefore there's something going on. There's an issue with the plan. Either it's not an appropriate plan, maybe the child needs a new assessment because their needs have changed. Goals, if the child is not meeting goals, then they're not making progress. So something is not right there. I can't tell you exactly what it would be, but I would say that for me, when I see an IEP with repeated goals over the years, that to me is a red flag that something's not working.
Okay. Sassy Tamayo has a question. Could you unmute yourself, Sassy? Go ahead.
Yes. I have a question for you. My son just received IEP less than a year ago, but I do have another parent that I'm speaking for her. Her child has an IEP since she was at kindergarten. Currently, her child is in the 3rd grade. The issue is that she wrote a written statement last year and she asked for a meeting because she feels that her daughter's IEP, it's not working for her, and not in the speech department, but something else. She did request that to get evaluated again. The school didn't do anything about it. So she had to go through different avenues. And now currently she had to get her own insurance company to contact the school to get another evaluation form. So now the school is running another IEP. But she's saying, does she qualify to go to the Tiger Clinic so you guys can help her regarding the school that is doing lack of support for her, that she's been requesting another assessment for the past year and a half?
So this is a case that sounds very ripe for our education rights clinic, where that she can meet one-on-one virtually now with our staff and volunteers. It sounds like there's a couple things that are going on. The school district has not complied with the time requirements in terms of assessments. It sounds like if one assessment was done but was not done appropriately, maybe the family is eligible for an independent assessment. These are all things that maybe a compliance complaint is in order, maybe due process for litigation. These are all things that our team will consider and advise the parent on. So absolutely, they should reach out, and we can do that. And yes, they are also welcome to contact me for Tiger classes. The difference is the consultation is one time and you get answers pretty immediately. The Tiger classes you learn over the course of 9, 10, 11 months. So you'll get that information, and you can ask me when I'm on the meetings, or she can ask me on the meetings, but I would probably refer that person to intake.
Okay. 2 more questions only. From Erica Clark, should RSP be keeping logs for each session? And
Yes.
if so, can I request it?
Yes. RSP, if the child's being pulled out, or if someone's going into the classroom to help the child, all of that needs to be logged, because the school needs to be able to show that they were in compliance with the IEP. So those are definitely part of the service logs that can be requested. If you email me, I'll see if I have a template. Mm-hmm. But really, for these cases, because there can be so much other stuff going on, I really hesitate to say, here's your answer, without talking to you, without reviewing the records, and without getting to know the case.
Then
in which case, I say, please go to our consultation. Okay,
from Alejandra, is it appropriate to reduce services when the goals are not being achieved?
When the goals are not being achieved. Oh my gosh, it depends. It depends. I would say, off the top of my head, if goals are not being achieved, the student's not making progress, no, probably you don't want to necessarily jump to reducing, but maybe you want to change the services. Maybe the services in place are not appropriate. So it's okay. You should be thinking about what's appropriate for my child, what's going to help them learn. Maybe one service will be decreased and another one will go up.
Okay, just one more and we're running out of time. About independent assessments. Where can I get an independent assessment?
Okay, free of charge from if the district pays for it, that's what I can tell you. If it's independent and you have the funds to pay for it, you're welcome to do that at any time. But if they're expensive, I will not have the resources to do that. So once the district assesses your child, if for whatever reason you disagree, maybe your child speaks Spanish and it was in English only, or maybe they did not assess in all areas of suspected disability like I talked about. If there's some flaw that you can point to in the district assessment, you have a right to request an independent assessment paid for by the school district, but you have to do it in a year. You have 1 year window opportunity to do that. And the school district has 2 options. They can either go ahead, agree to fund the assessment, or they can deny your request and take you to due process. So those are your two. That's a short answer, but again, I would say come talk to us because we can help you with that.
Okay. So thank you, Marisol. Thank you very much. Now we're gonna pass it to our leader, Lydia Ocampo, for the next part of the meeting.
I need to jump off. I'll put my email again in the Tiger.
Sí, ahora,
thank you.
Bueno, ahora vamos a...
Now we're going to present our next presenter. Is from Task Evaluations. Is Diana Huerta. Welcome to our meeting.
Muchísimas gracias. Voy a compartir mi pantalla, ¿ok? Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen.
Ok, ¿sí la mira? ¿Sí me escucha? Perfecto. Ok. Pues
Ay,
bienvenidos.
bien.
Buenas noches a todos.
Perfect. Welcome.
El día
Oh,
de hoy que voy a estar presentando hoy.
Today I'm going to be presenting evaluation process.
Vamos a estar presentando el proceso.
We're going to be
Mi
presenting.
nombre es Diana Huerta y soy una especialista
I am Diana Huerta, and I'm a specialist with family support working in the Alhambra office that covers all of LA County.
Soy una orgullosa madre de
I am a proud mother of a 6-year-old
que le diagnosticaron un
who was diagnosed
autista cuando tenía 4 años.
with autism spectrum disorder.
A través del viaje personal de mi hijo,
So through his journey, I'm learning a lot, and I'm also learning in collaboration with the parents that are in my same shoes. TASK is a training center for parents that started in 1978. So now we're celebrating over 40 years to servicing our parents. All those TASK services are free, and we help all parents, not based on income.
Y como más quería compartir muchos de nuestros
I wanted to share that many of our employees are also parents of children with special needs. So it's something beautiful having the opportunity to talk to our parents and understanding them, because I also have a child with special needs. TASK works with 6 counties, which is LA, San Bernardino, Orange, Riverside, San Diego, and Imperial. And our offices are located in Alhambra, Brea, Riverside, and San Diego. Our mission is that TASK educates and trains people with disabilities and their families. Exclusion of responsibilities or TASK is that the TASK does not recommend to parents the nature of the disability or to recommend services. Our specialists in family support here in TASK include phone consultations, also through Zoom, and we offer solutions how to navigate our IEPs. We also give phone meetings, how to help with IEPs, how to understand all the assessments, placement, and other areas of need. We also offer educational workshops, references, resources. We also participated in community events with other agencies like today. So technology services.
Puede llamar a la oficina para obtener más información.
You
Ahora,
can call the office. Okay.
para necesidades educativas. Aplicaciones para todas las edades.
Applications include for all children that are not verbal, and we offer free workshops regarding technology. So now I'm going to talk more about the assessment process. The workshop today covers the following: how to ask for an assessment letter, time of assessment, what is a fair assessment, types of assessments, recommendations and suggestions. How to ask for an assessment. Let's start from the beginning. The assessment process begins in writing to the Director of Special Ed. Parent will ask for the assessment request, also to the professionals that work with their students. They could also put it in writing. The assessment will determine the disability and their needs with special ed. There will be an IEP written. The goals and objectives written in the IEP will determine the related services and the placement. Now I'm going to present a sample of how to request an assessment in writing. We're going to put our information in chat if you would like a copy of the presentation. that shows how to request assessments. This is how to start the eligibility. You could also use it at any moment to request a new evaluation. Now, in the first paragraph, you can write the type of evaluation that you're requesting for your child. An example could be OT, for sensory integration, or for motor skills, speech and language. In the next paragraph, you can start with your concerns, which you could write in detail. What are your concerns with your child? For example, you need verbal reminders before doing homework. My child has problems concentrating. My child lasts 3 hours doing homework. So it gives you the opportunity to write in detail your concerns to justify the reasons why we're asking for these assessments. The last paragraph will give the timelines.
Te dan la oportunidad de preguntar más sobre qué tipo de pruebas se pueden realizar y en qué día y hora. ¿Cuáles son los plazos de la evaluación? Ahora el distrito recibe su solicitud de evaluación por escrito. Ahora el distrito tiene 15 días para devolver un plan de evaluación para que usted lo firme. Usted como padre tiene 15 días para devolver el plan de evaluación para que, con su firma, que comienza el plazo de 60 días, donde dentro de esos 60 días tienen que completar la evaluación y tener una junta de IEP. Hablemos de qué es una evaluación justa. Ahora, bajo la ley de IDEA, la evaluación...
Under the idea, the information, provides different informations. This team is supposed to make decisions along with the district, the parents of the district. So those assessments depends on the needs of the student. The district could use not just one, but a variety of assessments to see the needs of each student. The different areas of the plan includes the following: the types of evaluations, what would the test measure, what time of the day would the assessment be administered, accommodations, surveys for parents to get parent input, and parents' signature. So part of the plan is for parents to be involved and ask questions. And also every time that they meet with the parent, they need the parent's signature. What are the requirements for the assessments? This is the following. You need qualified evaluators, valid tests, not just use one criteria, evaluate the areas where need is suspected, informed and abled staff. And all of the evaluations will be included in this document, the report. It's possible that you can ask for these reports or maybe a draft 3 to 5 days before the IEP. You could also record as long as you let them know 24 hours ahead of time in writing. The reasons why you need these reports ahead of time is so that you could go ahead and understand the reports and their results. You could also use the task services to help you understand these reports before the IEP meeting. Once you're in the IEP meeting, this is a list of areas that could include to adapt to the needs of the students. I would like to go ahead and explain the difference between accommodation and modification. The reason why we want accommodation is that way they're in the diploma track. Modification changes the curriculum, and this is when the students become to be a certificate, completion of certificate. Different types of evaluations. These are some of the types of evaluations that are more common. Psychoeducational, audiology, occupational therapy, orientation and mobility, and integration. Help for the parents to help the needs to know what their special education child needs. Health, speech and language, assisted technology, and vision. And though this is not all of the list, these are the most common. Triennial reevaluations. So now, like I had mentioned, every 3 years, the district needs to complete all the assessments to see if the student still is eligible under IDEA for an IEP. Based on the assessments, the IEP team has different, and in 3 years after those assessments, they need to see if he's still eligible. Every time there's an evaluation, that's also an opportunity to eliminate services from IEP. The parent does not need to sign the IEP in the meeting, the day of the meeting, and the parents could take the document home to revise it until there is a complete understanding and agreement. What are the alternative assessments? The district needs to go ahead and comply with the Education of California. The district needs to evaluate all the students with the IEP. The alternative evaluation brings an alternative, like how do the students in the district are learning. So part of the IEP, that team needs to decide if the student needs to take an alternative assessment. Maybe the test could have less questions in special education. Now the team of the IEP team needs to decide if they get accommodations like reading things out loud, extra time, and also they can opt out of taking the test, and that's voluntary. Now we're going to talk about the functional behavior evaluation. What is an FBA? This evaluation is used if they have behaviors inside the classroom. So the evaluator needs to be qualified and certified to be able to do an FBA. The district will not accept doing an FBA unless they have a BIP. So they need to do observation different times during the day and different classroom activities and different activities in the school, like recess and lunch. And it also includes observations during the breaks, like recess and lunch. Now we're going to ask about what's an IEE. A parent has the right to ask for an IEE if you do not agree with the evaluation. The lay states that the parent needs to tell the district that they do not agree with the evaluation, and you don't have to state why you don't agree. After the IEP, the parents need to send that request for an IEE in a letter in writing to the director of special ed. It's very important that this is a process to initiate an IEE. So you don't have to agree with the IEP, and you could request an IE at the district's expense. Let's talk about the independent evaluation on behalf of the parents. What happens if my child was evaluated in an independent way without letting the district know? Now, the district does not need to pay for those assessments if they were not notified before the assessment. They do not need to implement the evaluation, but the district does need to consider this information. Then the parents could ask this assessment to go ahead with the legal process. So now let's talk about ERMs. Mental health services related to the education. These services related to education are given when the students need social, emotional needs that are important and needed to benefit these services and special ed placement. This referral is initiated in the IEP by somebody in the IEP, and the services need to be written in the IEP. Then we're going to talk about the other another evaluation, the health evaluation. The school nurse needs to complete a health assessment, maybe a child with seizures, diabetes, asthma, any medical condition. A child that takes medicine, whether at home or at school. This would also describe the medical protocol. Now, auditory processing evaluation. Auditory processing is part of the phonological area in the education area. And you can ask this for these different reasons. The audiological abilities are affected or interferes with the learning and comprehension that could cause this learning. Now let's talk about the ITP, the Individualized Transition Plan. In the IEP, the district needs to include an ITP by the age of 16. This plan, the ITP plan, could be in the IEP plan even earlier based on the individual needs of the student. Why is this important? The IETP states the goals and ambitions of the student after the high school, like university, vocational, work, or depending on the disability, be a client of the HRC or the rehabilitation department. The ITP has the goals and the objectives, and you could go ahead and it can include the following: job opportunities, preference for the student, moods, learning preference, developmental history, abilities to function in the daily living, vocational and occupational abilities as well. The purpose to plan the transition and all the services with it is to design the educational program so that they can have a successful transition to reach the goals after high school. And finally, I always like to conclude my presentation with some suggestions and recommendations. You could ask for drafts of the reports 3 to 5 days before the IEP, so that way you could feel comfortable and prepared. A prior written notice to go ahead and let them know that you're going to record, audio record the meeting, but you need to ask for that. The changes in eligibility needs an evaluation. In addition, to add or take away a services like OT, speech and language, etc., the district needs to do an evaluation. The IEP signature. You can take the IEP home before you sign it so that you can review it and you can understand it well and wait for it in your own language, like Spanish. And you could also ask our agency for individualized support and IEP consults. We're always give support, and if you need more support after the consult, you can ask us again to offer more services. That way we can support and advocate or help the parents advocate for their students. And this is the end of the presentation. I realized that I talk very fast and I finish earlier than I normally. And this is my agency's information. And thanks again for this opportunity to be here today, offering this workshop about the IEP process. I'm going to stop sharing in case there's questions.
There's one question says in Spanish, ¿qué tanto tiempo puedo pedir el FBA? How much time can I ask the FBA? Maybe in advance.
So típicamente nuestros papás cuando los llaman y quieren pedir un
normally when the parents call us and want to ask for an FBA, the first questions we ask is if they already have a behavior plan in the IEP. So when we make a consult, that's what we look at. Do you have a behavior plan in the IEP? And from there, we can determine if it's recommended to ask for the evaluation of the FBA evaluation. Do you want me to read the questions in the chat, Magda?
No, I was reading them. There's not that many, but they do asking for the material in English. We didn't give a heads up to the audience that there was going to be a presentation in Spanish.
I did actually share the information with oh my goodness, Miss Dr. Ken Owens. Did I?
Okay. Yeah.
So I did share the English presentation. So I did want to share that this is one of our we have an array of workshops, but the most popular ones is the Navigating IEP, which really breaks down the law of IDEA, and we really explain the IEP process. So if parents are interested, they're more than welcome to or call us, and we'll be we can send them an upcoming workshops flyer with all our upcoming educational workshops that we provide to the community.
And I just shared the link again, Magda. So the presentation in English and Spanish, along with their agendas and everything, are there on that link in the chat.
Okay.
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate it.
Felice Sparks. So just click on the link on that message after your comment, and you will find the presentation in English.
Thank you.
And you're more than welcome to always email us or call us, and we'll be more than happy to share the presentation, and as well as the direct links to register to our upcoming workshops. We present every other week on from navigating IEPs, the assessment process, Section 504, transition to adult services, and early intervention.
Diana, is there any examples, obviously respecting privacy, that you could share about how a parent advocated for a child and got a modification or more services, or how was the process, or of specific experiences that you may have?
Magda, do you want me to answer in Spanish or in English?
I think the interpretation is better if it goes from English to Spanish than if it goes from Spanish to English.
Okay. So to answer that question, when we're talking to parents and we do our individualized consultations, we typically do the intake, the initial intake, where we really want to get to know the parent. We want to know what their areas of concern are, what they might not understand about navigating the IEP process. And within that, that's where we provide options, right? What options do the parents have? Maybe a parent has an area of concern with the specific part of the IEP that they might feel is not being carried out. So an option here would be that they have the parental right to request an IEP meeting that can be held within 30 days. So that would be an option to them. And again, depending on every individualized consult, because everybody's case is so unique and to their own, that's when we would provide the options. What would be the best option for them? Maybe we need to start doing a little bit of letter writing, to document the area of need that parent has, or maybe that concern that the parent has can be easily, conversed into an IEP meeting with the entire team to put that concern on the table and see how the IEP team wants to assist the student with the parental concern. So that would be, my answer to that question.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, anybody has any other question? Or you can raise your hand using the reactions, or you can write your question in the chat. Alice, go ahead.
Yeah, my daughter is Elise. I'm using her Chromebook. My name is Nina, and I'm just confused on the, since she has graduated and gone to adult Tucker, is the IEP changed? Is it called IPP or is it still IEP?
So my question to you is, the students still in the 18 to 22 program, or have they graduated high school?
She just started in the PAC program.
I can't hear you. You're breaking up a little bit. What program?
She just started in the PAC program.
Can you hear her? I have my program manager with me as well. Her name is Ms. Suzanne Galindo for our Region 1, which covers all of Los Angeles County. Did you hear her, Suzanne?
She says she's in the AG program, in the transitional to community to adults.
Oh, 18 to 22 program. Okay. So no, they still have an IEP. They still have an IEP until they exit the school district.
Okay, thank you.
I hope I was able to answer your question. If you want any kind of more individualized consultations to review your IEP, if you have an upcoming IEP meeting, please feel free to call us. We do our, individualized consultations and by Zoom or by phone, and we can kind of, discuss, the IEP process, what your areas of concern are, and kind of, provide you some options and guidance. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Absolutely.
Maria, do you raising your hand? Would you like to speak? María Otoño? Yes.
Sí. Una pregunta, Diana. Me gustaría saber qué tan importante es aprender nosotros como padres a leer esa evaluación. ¿En qué nos ayudaría a nosotros a aprender a cómo leer? Ustedes
I have a question. How important is it for us to know how to read these IEPs? Do you guys have a workshop?
Presentamos este taller, no hay menos personas. So, lo que hacemos nosotros es, en ciertas partes paramos en el taller por si los papás y las mamás tienen preguntas, o los profesionales tienen preguntas, y paramos si es donde estamos contestando las preguntas y asegurando que los participantes entiendan la información que estamos presentando. Ahora.
Yes, so we go ahead and have these workshops, and there's less people, so we're able to stop if parents have questions, if professional has questions. So my answer is yes. So sometimes they go ahead and send these documents. They're extensive, they're long. So how can we support these parents? So we say, you know what? There's a service that we provide where we could give you an individualized consult where the parent, if you feel comfortable, could send the documents over to us through email. and we do a consult. A lot of the parents say, well, are we going to finish an hour? No. Sometimes we have 3 or 4 hour meetings with these parents to see the report in depth and review it section by section. That way the parent could go ahead and understand what assessments did they use, what were the results that they used, and what are the recommendations that they're suggesting. So that way you have an idea of the recommendations to see if the child's going to receive this therapy, what goals and objectives are they going to have based on the different reports and assessments. So we collaborate with the parents so that they can understand this document very well, especially if it's in English and you have not received it in Spanish and you're going to have a meeting. So we talk about it together. This is what this explains. This is the assessment they used, that your child's very low. So if he's low in certain areas, how is the district going to be responsible to support our students? What services will they provide our students so that we could go ahead and provide these or meet these goals? So this is what we talk about in our meetings. And me, I'm a person that's used to reading reports and they're so long and extensive, and sometimes I even ask another person to help me so that I could understand and make sure that I get all the concepts and all the information in a report.
Okay, go ahead, Katie.
So thank you very much for your presentation, Diana. I actually have an FBA about basically the IEP meeting coming up next week to go over FBA results. And I'm curious, what can I do to prepare for that? I'm glad I listened to your presentation because I didn't realize I can request this 3 to 5 days in advance. It's really hard, especially over Zoom, when they present it on the screen, you can't even read it. So I realized I need to ask for things in advance, but I didn't know I can ask for it that far in advance.
Yeah, so the option here would be to always request, and it's usually on the assessment plan. So when you sign the assessment plan in like fine writing, sometimes it depends on the district, obviously, you know, everybody has different forms depending on what district you belong in, but there's usually a box where you can check off that you'd like to receive a copy of such assessment. And usually it states the psychoeducational, but you can also write in there that you'd love to receive, you know, the FBA report, and you typically 4 to 5 days prior to the IEP meeting so that you can yourself prepare. If they haven't provided it to you, you know, the option here would be to make a written request for it to your case, the special educations administrator that's, sending you the information on, when the IEP meeting is going to take, and, when it's going to be, the one that provides you all the information for your IEP meeting so you can yourself prepare. So that would be the option. And also, again, you can always contact us. We're parents of children with disabilities, so we get these reports as well because, as parents who have, I'm sorry, I can't hear. Okay. As someone who, has a child with a disability, so we collaboratively work together as a team to, review these with you and provide you the best options so that you yourself can be prepared for your meeting.
I also have a couple more things.
Apologies. Gary Marshall, would you mind muting because we cannot hear you? Gary Marshall, please mute.
Gary Marshall, mute.
There's 2 more things. I invited my oh, I guess he doesn't hear.
Chris, this is my interpreter. If you can mute Mr. Marshall.
I invited our ABA therapist to the meeting.
ABA therapist
Are they translating?
I think so.
Oh, okay. So I invited the ABA therapist to our meeting, which it sounds like that's okay, right? Our home ABA therapist, our lead therapist. Is that, to me, that seems appropriate. And then, is it possible to have the meeting partially on Zoom and partially in person for those who feel comfortable meeting in person? Because honestly, the Zoom.
You sound very echoish. I can't hear you. Is it just me where I can't hear Miss Hattie?
Sorry. Are we allowed to have our IEP meetings in person? Or like maybe part in person and part on Zoom for the people who don't want to be in person? Because it's very Can you hear me?
Could you ask your question one more time? I'm so sorry. They were having some technical difficulties.
Diana, are you in the Spanish? Miss Diana, are you in the Spanish room or in the English room? Can you hear me, Diana?
Diana, ¿está en el room de español o en el de inglés?
¿Yo?
¿En qué lenguaje estás?
Ninguno.
Oh.
Ajá. No estoy segura si yo soy la única que no la está escuchando correctamente.
Ajá. ¿Puedes entrar al canal y seleccionar inglés?
¿Inglés? Okay.
Ajá.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. Katie,
okay,
again,
sorry
please.
about that.
Okay, I have 2 more questions. I'll make it
Sure,
quick.
no problem. Sorry, I think I was in the wrong spot. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties here.
I invited our home ABA therapist to attend the meeting because I think she can actually help add to it, especially because she knows Anthony very well. So I felt like that was appropriate. The second thing is it possible to meet in person and the people who are not comfortable in person for the IEP meeting can be on Zoom at the same time? Because it's very difficult to do IEP meetings on Zoom for me.
That would have to be
they didn't even offer it to me. They just said Zoom. That was my invitation.
I would make a written request to the special education administrator or the special ed director, letting them know your current, concerns of having the meeting by Zoom or by, in person, kind of like letting them know what it is that you're requesting because of what the reasons that you're justifying right now. And, requesting that you want a written response back within a reasonable time frame to, because you're requesting the meeting because of these reasons.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, question from Alejandra Mejia. If the IEP team does not provide us with the copies of the evaluation before the IEP meeting, what can we do?
So in this, I'm taking that they've already made the written request, to obtain copies prior to the meeting. Again, always asking for draft copies of the assessment reports. But I mean, it's a courtesy for the district to provide you these documents so you yourself can be prepared like everybody in the IEP team. We always recommend that parents, never cancel your IEP meeting. You want to attend your IEP meeting. So, the option here is the first question I would ask that parent: did you make a written request for the assessment reports? Anywhere between 5 to 7 days prior to the IEP meeting. And, if you didn't receive them, just know that you have a parental right to not sign the IEP meeting that day until you obtain copies of all the assessment reports and your IEP so that you have a complete understanding of what you are going to be signing, especially if it's based on assessments that have been conducted for that IEP meeting.
If you'd like to address Candy, I'm actually going through the regional center for my ABA, so they do offer half Zoom and half in person, just to let you know.
Yeah, I do know some districts are offering in-person IEP meetings. I know some districts are giving the parents the option of in-person or Zoom. So it ultimately depends on your school district, and if they haven't presented an alternative resolution, make a written request, to request it either in person or in Zoom for the following reasons, and that you want to, an answer to your request within a reasonable time frame.
Very good. We have another question or comment, but this may be to Dr. Rachel Hennon, to the actual district, to say that sending reports and assessments to families before meetings should be a district-wide IEP protocol. Thank you, Robin Wickerly. Robin, excellent comment.
And I love Robin. Absolutely. Yes, it should be. And just Ms. Huerta, thank you for your presentation. I know it was a lot of information, but one thing I do want to just let parents know is we have 10,000 students with IEPs. So if they do want to make a request for assessment, they don't necessarily have to send me a letter, which I would love to send a response to everybody. But the quickest, most appropriate thing would be for the parent to reach out to their school site, anybody at their school personnel, put it in writing, bring it to the front desk. that would kind of expedite things a little bit instead of sending them all to me. So that's just a little hint on how to kind of expedite the process.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So Dr. Rachel, so maybe when the teachers send the letter with the notice for the meeting, maybe just have like on a bigger font at the bottom to say, if you want to request this is the way you can do it. So we know where to, go ask for it.
Definitely.
Yes.
And usually, and the reason we share that information that to send to the director of special ed is for those parents who might not necessarily know what, school they belong to. Maybe they have little ones transitioning out of the regional center. So, if the regional center hasn't made contact at the age of 3 to the school district, because they might not know what school they're going to make it to the director of special ed. So that's why we usually we generalize that. But no, yes, absolutely. We always tell them, if you know your special education administrator to the school that you're attending, please, let them, send it to them first.
And Dr. Rachel, is it possible to have in-person meetings for the IEP?
Well, I know probably Dr. Simon can hit on this exactly, but right now we're really still concerned about, the pandemic. We do have any school visitor must be fully vaccinated. So we want to mitigate any possibility for people to be bringing the virus into the school, as well as, the school team. So there are exceptions, absolutely. And if a team has made that decision and everybody has taken, the proper protocols. But right now we are definitely supporting Zoom meetings at this time until we get further guidance from the Department of Public Health. Dr. Simon, do you want to follow?
Spot on, Dr. Heenan. Spot on.
Thank you very much. Let me just scroll through the chat to see if there's any other question. Maybe if you could explore a little bit more what resources are for students transitioning from high school to adulthood, and resources for schools or universities after high school. Diana?
Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. My internet's a little unstable, so I do apologize for that.
Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I got it.
Okay.
So we have a transition to adult service workshop where we present to parents kind of like the process of if a student is transitioning outside of the, high school into schooling to, like college or, community college or for your university. So we, one of the things that we always, when we're talking to parents, they always want to we give resources to parents about maybe they have thoughts of conserving their child, so we can provide more information regarding conserving your child, as well as generic resources as the Department of Rehabilitation, the services that they provide. We provide, guidance of if they are, individuals who are part of the regional center, if they contacted their service coordinator to really, when they're going to have their IPP meeting, next, to talk about the transition services that, can be offered and provided to their, to the, individual who's part of the regional center by, possibly asking for an IPP meeting. So it really depends on that, individual's, individualized plan of what they want to do, whether they're going to continue the 18 to 22 program, whether they're going to graduate, what, path that they're on, that we can provide an array of different, services and guidance on what they can do to, become more independent individuals in the community.
Okay. It doesn't seem like we have any more questions for you, Diana. Thank you very much for your presentations, and obviously for putting all your information on the chat for everybody else to reach out to you later on if they need to, attend your classes or anything else. I just want to say both Learning Rights, Tiger, and Task are excellent places to be informed. The IEP world is just so big that I only know about my child's condition, and that one in itself is huge. So once you add every other type of disability, it's just really a huge world, and it does take a lot of education for us parents to really be as helpful as we can as well. So we have, you know, a lot of resources in the community, and obviously to work with the district. So with this, thank you very much. We are out of time on your presentation, but it has been very good, and we had plenty of questions as well. So
no, thank you so much for having us here. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So to our to Lilia, go ahead with the rest of the meeting.
Sí, creo que María va a
Yes,
continuar.
I think Maria will continue. Good evening. Sorry, I had an emergency. Diana, thank you for your presentation. Just the recommendations. Follow Diana's recommendations. It's made my IEPs easier to have control of the IEP. As long as with those recommendations I learned from the organization, everything will flow. And we can all have a quicker IEPs, because I know sometimes they could be 3 to 4 hours, but I've learned that having everything on hand and being prepared, and the district can be prepared, the information can flow. Now the district is gonna present regarding information. I don't know who's gonna, Dr. Rochelle? It's regarding the redistricting.
Pero dejo aquí. Eso.
Redistricting. So I hand it over to the district so that they could do their presentation, because I think it's important that we're all informed.
Well, now I know that we were waiting for people from the superintendent's office, and I don't know if they're here yet. So I'm looking around. So maybe when they hop on, if they are waiting to hop on a little bit, they can take it away. So are you okay if, I know we have a couple announcements as well from the district. Are you okay if we proceed with those, or do you want to wait until the end?
Por favor, continue. Yes, continue with
Yes, continue.
Okay, Dr. Rosenquist, I know you had some information about the school of choice, and it's very important that the parents hear it. So Dr. Rosenquist, if you are on here, you want to take it away?
I am. And I'm going to drop some things in the chat, some links. But before I did, those parents and families who have 8th graders now that are moving into high school next year, this is specifically for you. So we have school of choice for all levels. And at different times of the year, there are different levels. So right now we're focused on the 8th to 9th graders going to high school. And so you will be getting information, and I'm going to put some specific information in the chat about the timeline. When do you need to be ready? What do you need to do? And how do you need to do that? Because right after the winter break, the applications will be coming up on Parent View. And so you'll want to, before that, if you don't have a Parent View account, you'll want to make sure that you have a Parent View account, that you know how to access it. And it gives you information on the Long Beach Unified website. And then after winter break, you fill out an application selecting the schools, the high schools that your son or daughter want to attend, and you put them in ranking order. There's a video on the website that gives you directions. It is an old video, so it's for the prior year, and they're working on updating that. But some things to pay attention to is that when you're every comprehensive high school, and so when we're talking Jordan, Cabrillo, Pauley, Milliken, Lakewood, Wilson, Milliken, when we're talking the comprehensive high schools, they have all of the programs. So your school of residence high school, the one that's in your area, most likely will have the program that your student needs, and so that they should be able to go to their school of residence. And that's what we call least restrictive environment, that they're able to walk or be near to their school. Where school of choice comes in is that if you as a family or the student have a different school that you want to go to, whether it's one of the smaller campuses, the specialty campuses like McBride, Browning, Renaissance, or if you want to go to a different comprehensive high school that's not your school of residence, then you do what's called school of choice. So you as a family always have the ability to select which school you want to go to. If you are selecting a school that's not your school of residence, sometimes it's a limited amount of space. So it depends on, how many spots are available. And know that when you select school of choice, for students with IEPs, and if you have transportation, the district does not provide transportation to a school of choice. And we don't do that because we believe that your school of residence has the program most likely that your student needs as per their IEP. And if you are selecting a school outside of that, then it's the family's responsibility to transport. And so all of that is on the application. It's all information. There was a parent video and information night on November 3rd that is recorded. What I really want to highlight, and I'll put all of this information in the chat, this Saturday, it's really important that there's what's called a high school choice fair. So if you are new to this and you don't know anything about the high schools, you don't know what a pathway is, you don't even know, what's offered at your high school or any high school, this Saturday, November 13th, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Cabrillo High School, there's a fair where all of the high schools have booths, and they have the administrators and they have teachers and they have staff there to answer your questions, to give you information so that you can decide, what works for your family and your student, and helps you get that information. So that's one way that you can kind of decide and see what's out there. And then each high school has what's called a high school choice night. And so when you go on the website, you'll see a bunch of dates and times that you can go to each site, whether it's virtual or in person, to check it out, to ask specific questions. So high school choice is really important, and it's really important for families and for all families to know the process. And that's why we wanted to bring that up now, is so that you feel comfortable in the technology, you feel comfortable in knowing, what your options are so that you can make informed consent. Okay, so I'm going to put that in the chat. I don't know if Dr. Heenan or our other presenters are on, but I'll be here after to answer any specific questions.
Thank you, Dr. Rosenquist. I'm still trying to connect with Mr. Suarez, so something might have come up, but I know that there is a flyer on redistricting, that's a very hard word to say, that was provided to the families, and we'll make sure we get that out again to provide your input, because it's very important we have the voice of our parents of students with disabilities. So if he does not hop on, I'm assuming something did come up, but I know that Rochelle Martin is also here just to share some information for parent resources. So additional information. I know we had a lot tonight, but I think the more we have for everybody, the better. And that can, help out with people who have different schedules, different interests, different timing of the year. So I'm happy to see that we can offer more support and information to parents. So without further ado, Ms. Rochelle Martin. I can't hear you, Rochelle.
You don't look muted, but we cannot hear you. Let's see. Have you selected interpretation, any channel, maybe English?
Hey, Rochelle, did you select your English on the little globe? Did you mute your original audio? Try to turn that off.
Do you have headsets connected? Because I've done that.
Let me see if I can just do it this way. Can you hear me? Yay! Okay. Thank you. Well, I was just saying good evening on the night before a day off. I certainly hope that you all have something enjoyable that you've planned for yourself tomorrow, whether it's something little or something big. And I was just a little gratitude as well to Dr. Rosenquist for sharing some information about High School of Choice. I myself have an 8th grader, so I know it's quite a process to really learn and be a part of. I'm going to drop a flyer into the chat right now for all of you. Let me get it to go up. There we go. And if I can share my screen, which I think that I can. At our last meeting together, we were able to share some informational sessions that we have planned out of the Division of Special Education. And we just wanted to remind you that these are happening and just let you know that the invitation is open and we are happy to be able to provide these kind of ongoing opportunities to just share as much information as we can. I'm going to open up this flyer here really quickly just to share with you some of the topics we're covering. So we've already had a couple sessions, one on LRAP, one on just IEP 101, and coming up next week, we have one on rights, conservatorship, and life after high school. And you can see for the rest of the school year, we have some other options available for you, accommodations and modifications, something that people always want to know more about, navigating the special education process within our district. And also thinking about how we can support speech and language development with our students here. So to be able to join one of these sessions, you actually click on the registration link and you can do that at any time and it'll provide you with the Zoom code to use to then join once the meeting occurs. So they're all from 5:30 to 6:30. They are being facilitated by many of our special education administrators and just another great opportunity to come and learn together. So we hope that you will be able to join us at some of these sessions and that we can see you there and learn together as well. So I dropped that into the chat, so you have the link. Other than that, we will see you at some of our sessions. And I'm not sure if we're moving on in the agenda or if George has arrived. So I'm gonna hand it back to you, Dr. Heenan, to see if we're going to be able to move forward with the redistricting. I'm going to practice saying the word too, redistricting.
I know that there was one question that was sent to me and asked if you could just talk a little bit about LRAP for some of the parents who missed that information and what opportunities there are for parents who want to sign up for the next session.
Sure. So for those of you who were not able to sign up, don't fret. We are going to have a session 2 this spring. But what we are offering is just additional support and enrichment, either focusing on academics, language, or occupational therapies based on if your student has those services within their IEP. They're small group sessions. They're held on Saturdays. They're 45 minutes. So we're able to provide support and enrichment for a lot of our students here in the district. So one thing that we did want to point out about LRAP is that it's an additional support for students who have IEPs. It is not in replace of anything that's happening within your schools, right? So there's a lot of additional support happening at schools. You'll hear information about tutoring services and different options that are happening at the within your schools. And so we recommend that you continue to take advantage of all of those opportunities and work with your schools to find out what's happening within their schools themselves. But LRAP is an additional support on top of. So we are in our first session right now. which runs through December. And then we will be starting a second session in the spring. So I would anticipate that in January, we'll be having probably communications will be sent out, and we'll have some more informational meetings for families to make sure that if you are interested in that support, that we would be able to make sure that you had the registration information and that we were able to get your child into the next LRAP session. And I see a couple of questions coming in. Yes, tutoring services. There are going to be a range of services provided within your school site. So you would talk to your site administrator about what that's going to look like. So please continue to be in contact with your school sites around what's being offered at the school as well. So things are happening at the school sites. LRAP is happening in addition to, again, it's on Saturdays, 45-minute sessions, and we will be offering our second opportunity in spring. So please look for communications around that as well. All right.
So thank you for the district representatives. We have 5 minutes left for the meeting. So public comments are now welcome. Anybody could raise their hand or put it on the chat as well.
I was really quickly, while we're doing that, going to let everybody know that there is a flyer regarding the redistricting that Mr. Suarez was going to be talking with us about. And it has information in that flyer for you to give input. So in the links that I've been sharing in the chat, if you click on that link, you'll see a flyer in there that addresses the redistrictings in case you wanted to give your input on it.
Dr. Henan, we did have an email before in our CAC if we could have any updates on the remote learning for students with disabilities. It seems like there was in the news something about a judge ruling that it must be provided, something like that.
Yeah, so again, everything related to instruction for your child is done through the IEP process. So again, there needs to be consideration for any student who parent is requesting independent study. And so again, we refer all the families to their IEP team, and our special ed administrators will guide them through the process.
You were muted, Magda.
So any other questions? Anybody? We have only 2 minutes left. Please raise your hand or put it on the chat. Otherwise, we will close the meeting right on time. Seems like we will.
Solo quería agradecer a todos por su presencia.
I wanted to appreciate everybody for being here, and especially the district for all the information you're providing, and all the presenters that gave very informative presentations and very helpful to all the parents present. Thank you.
Gracias por todo el apoyo.
Thank you for all the support. Thank you for being here today. To all the administrative team, thank you for those meetings. A lot of parents are benefiting from that hour in private to ask questions and helping with the problems. Thank you for that idea. Thank you for the support.
Todo por el día de hoy.
I think that's all for tonight. We have 2 minutes if anybody wants to add anything. Have a great evening, a great day tomorrow. Rest and forget about everything. Thank you and good night, everyone.